we were very critical throughout the offseason with the lack of moves that on the coaching staff that presumably would make this offense better, lack of activity in the transfer portal, lack of a plan at quarterback. And I did. There were moments during this show and during my show, Mark, where I kind of got tired of saying the same things over and over again. But now I've kind of reflected back, and I wish this wasn't the case, but we were right. And I know that's not the first time we've said that this season, but now we're 7 games into the year, Mark, and our worst fears, I know you're not an Iowa fan, but our worst fears as people who are talking about Iowa was that this would be the case. Iowa's offense would be really bad again. We never thought it could be worse, but it is. But I look back and I'm less hard on the both of us and less hard on others who have been outspoken about this subject, because I feel the same way I felt 10 months ago. And I wish I didn't. Now, I do want to move the needle here because we're talking about being negative. Let's be positive here for the first segment of this show if we can. I really want to talk because we discuss the offense each week. We understand how bad it is.
I think you're picking up on this, and I'm would be more understanding of this just because of the number of teams that I cover and because I cover the entire sport. This narrative about the Iowa offense has become such a overriding narrative of this team that people that don't even talk Iowa football are understanding of it now. Our Miami show, there's just a offhanded comment. We were not talking about Iowa in any such way. There was just an offhanded comment about Miami's having a horrible season and then something about the Iowa offense. Well, we might as well have an Iowa offense like the worst offense in the country. Steve Dace, we recorded our Michigan podcast, which is all Michigan. And if it's about the Big Ten, it's directly related to Michigan. But he just came out of nowhere and said, Mark, what do you make of this Iowa situation? He said,
you're right. And it's unfortunate. It's unfair to everybody, all the players, the coaches, the special teams people on, coaching and player wise on this team. I was, you know this, how this goes, because deep down, I know you are an Ohio State fan, but you get it. When you watch a football game, there are times where you kind of forget to, you look at the stat sheet after the game and it pops off at you and you're like, wow, I did not realize this or this. And that's exactly how I reacted during the postgame show on Saturday.
Our score predictions were only off by 1 point. I had already produced mine. Neither one of us knew what we were predicting. You went 30-9. I went 31-10. I think we both had a similar approach to the way this thing was going to go. And it pretty much went that way. It just got out of hand because of what is typically a deplorable Iowa offense, but doesn't give the ball away, right. At least punts it, started giving the ball away.
And Tory Taylor doesn't normally have a bonehead decision like he did that was basically the equivalent of a 7th turnover. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. The turnovers, there's absolutely no way you can win a football game against Ohio State ever by turning the ball over 6 times. But especially when you're, the worst offense in the country already, really minus, like you just brought up, kind of minus the turnover category, which Iowa turnover margin wise is pretty good. Now that also speaks to the defense, but yeah, I was just in shock after that first play. And it just got worse. Gavin Williams fumbles, LaShawn Williams fumbles, Petrus throws another pick. They bring in Padilla, by the way, at a terrible time, unfair to him. They bring him in. Now, to make this clear, it was the right move in the moment. They had to make a change, right? But we've said that before, and they haven't. So they made the right move at the moment, but it's on them for not doing it sooner, giving him snaps when they were up 27-0 on Nevada. Shame on the coaching staff for not doing that. Shame on them. So they should have done that. And, you look at the second half for Padilla. He fumbles the snap on the first play from scrimmage, which, by the way, there have been issues between Petrus and Logan Jones at center throughout the year as well. So that's not an issue exclusive to Alex Padilla. But I had some people, and I appreciate everybody that listens to the show, but I did have to kind of defend Alex after the game because some people came on the show and said, well, he had no pressure on him. You're down 16. You got nothing to lose. Mark, like 10 days prior to that game, Brian Ferentz went out there and completely, in my book, degraded Alex Padilla with his choice of language, whether it was intentional or not. Didn't give his quarterback any vote of confidence. He hasn't been given a vote of confidence throughout the season because he hasn't even been given a chance despite the abysmal play at quarterback for the last 6 games. So to sit here and act like he was playing with house money in the second half just because they were behind. He's at Ohio State. Very well could be desperate to prove his worth because nobody seems to believe in him but the fans that don't get to watch him in practice. I think he was playing with a ton of pressure. So I don't blame him. You know, unfortunately, they lost the fumble. That was unfortunate. I wish he could have just covered it up and hopefully gotten that out of his system. And then the interception was what it was. It was unfortunate. Great hands by the Ohio State defender, thrown a little bit in front of Sam Laporta. Now, it was not as egregious. I hate to, compare interceptions, but it was not nearly as egregious as the 2 Spencer Petrus interceptions. And Alex Padilla is my take. I'm not there every day in practice. Right now, the depth chart says Spencer Petrus or Alex Padilla. Ferentz won't tip his cap one way or the other. If he trots Spencer Petrus out, first game against Northwestern on Saturday, they're going to be boos raining down on Spencer Petrus, but they're going to be directed towards the coaches. That's unfortunate. I hope the coaches will make the decision to play Alex regardless of how practice goes this week. And normally I wouldn't say that because obviously a big part of a coach's evaluating process should be how these guys are performing in practice. But this is a situation very unique, right? Very, very unique. And Alex has proven that he's no worse than Spencer in games. I've made the argument he was actually better last year. An Iowa reporter this morning or this afternoon, speaking with Kirk, made the point that the last 2 times they've inserted Alex Padilla have been in absolutely unfair moments. Second half against Michigan in the Big Ten championship game when you're already down double figures. Second half against Ohio State in the shoe when you're already down double figures. You can't imagine worse scenarios. I mean, because again, I don't believe that's house money at all. I think you're playing with tons of pressure in huge moments. So, no, I think Alex Padilla should be your starter on Saturday. And in answer to Danimals' question here is Super Chat. And I believe, barring some major change, that Alex deserves the rest of the season. Unless he's absolute. I mean, again, I don't know how you play much worse than Iowa has had at quarterback through the first 6 games. So I think you just got to say, look, you are our guy now. And that means we may never see Spencer Petrus play another down at Iowa. That's possible. And very sad. If that happens, the career of Spencer Petrus is unfortunate. Hopefully it makes him a better person in the long run because it's not all his fault. Most of it's not his fault. Hopefully it'll make him a better person. I think he's going to be a great businessman, etc. But I hope that Alex Padilla is given a fair shot because I don't think he did anything in the second half that lost that opportunity when you compare it to what his counterpart did.
All that makes total sense. And again, because of where Iowa sits in the Big Ten Western Division, they still have a mathematical chance of winning the division, but that's not going to happen. And that's not necessarily just a concession to the end of the season or a concession to next year or anything like that. Again, we're talking about an offense that's not an offense that's horrible. We'll just call it what it is. And the one position in which you can just switch that out. Not that the other position should not be evaluated, of course. And if there are a better option of a combination along the offensive line or whatever the evaluation is at the other positions, but that is the one position where, based on what we've run down, of course, Spencer Petrus has a lot larger catalog of stats and resume to show us, but you ran through it and we've done it a number of times. You did it a few weeks ago. We did it during the offseason. Alex Padilla's performance in the opportunities he has received has been similar, if not better in some aspects, to Spencer Petrus. And if anything, he gives you, it's fair to him to give him the opportunity. And it's also fair to the team to give somebody else the opportunity to see if it just works better. And then on top of all that, more mobile quarterback who there may be 2 or 3 times during the course of a game, and it may make a big difference in a 17-14 game coming up against Purdue, where being elusive and being able to scramble for a first down will make the difference.
I have this. So I've been wrong before. Let me just, obviously.
Come on. No.
I was wrong predicting the Big Ten championship game last year, right? I was wrong there. Now I've been right a lot about scores this year, but so have you. I mean, this has been a very predictable Iowa team because we thought the defense was going to be really good. And we thought the offense was going to be really bad. And that's exactly how each game has played out. Every single game. You want to argue the Nevada game. Nevada's terrible, and they still managed just 27 points. So you could argue the offense even underachieved in that game. But here's my prediction. If Iowa gives Alex the full vote of confidence and says, you're our guy moving forward, barring some unforeseen occurrence, I believe he'll play well. And I think the offense will be better. I'm not saying it's going to be I'm not saying it's going to be good. I'm not going to say it's going to be average because it won't be. They have too many problems. Quarterback is not going to solve everything, but it will be better. And I think fans will find something positive to take away from. And I'll tell you something else. You want to play politics. If Kirk Ferentz wants to play politics, here's how you do it. You give him the full vote of confidence publicly. And you may say, well, that's unfair to Spencer Petrus. He's been given the full vote of confidence for 2.5 years and hasn't not earned it. So no, you want to at least appease a portion of the segment, a faction of the fan base. You give Alex Padilla after this week a full vote. He didn't do it today, but moving forward, you give him the full vote of confidence. You say he's our guy moving forward. Fans will respect Brian more. They'll respect Kirk more. Not saying that there won't be. I'll still think, unless this offense does a complete 180, which they will not, fans are still going to say Brian Ferentz needs to be relieved of his duties. But to me, I don't know what would be the harm at this. What is the downside, in the words of, in the opposite words of Brian Ferentz? What would be the downside of making this change at this point? There's not a big drop off, and
I'm going to give you you can't get worse than 131 in the country. So the offensive performance, you could run the same play over and over and over, and you're going to get more offensive production. The only downside, and this is a very petty one, and I hope it's not the motivation, the downside is that they look bad. They look bad in their original decision and choice of a quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so there's where I say when you're playing politics, because unfortunately I feel like that's what's occurred a lot over the past 2.5 years. I brought this up before, haven't brought it up recently. I don't recall, and someone may tell me I'm wrong, I don't recall the last time that Kirk Ferentz has endorsed a quarterback that's never played, like he endorsed Spencer Petrus in January of 2020. That was a very unique moment. That just never happens. I don't believe that even happened with Nate Stanley. And there was a lot of hype around Nate Stanley because remember, he saw the field briefly in 2016 when CJ Beathard went down with an injury. But Kirk Ferentz went out there and said Spencer Petrus is our guy in January before spring practice even occurred in 2020. So for anybody that doesn't want to think pride could have something to do with their decision not to admit they were wrong, I don't agree. I just think there's too much circumstantial evidence to support that line of reasoning.